Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Stargirl, Season 1, Episode 1. It is simply called The Pilot. So we'll start spoiler free because it is an Episode 1. We'll give you warning in the middle before we go into the spoilers, but we'll give our thoughts and impressions on this new show from DC Universe, but also airing a day later on the CW. Is DC Comics' newest adaptation of one of their characters, the character who was introduced by Geoff Johns and has largely been tied to the GSA for much of her life at the end of the 90s. That's when she was introduced. So this is a separate universe from all the other DC shows. It does exist in the multiverse of the DC shows, as has been established in those other shows, but it's on its own. It's not tying in directly to anything.
I think officially the CW stuff labelled this as Earth 2 now.
This is Earth 2 now, okay, right.
Yeah,
fair enough.
This is the new Earth 2.
Maybe it'll be relevant someday. Right now, it's probably just a meaningless label that doesn't
Pretty much
matter. Yeah. But yeah, so we get an introduction to this. Traditionally, the GSA backstory is that the GSA, the original GSA, because this show is keeping in the idea, the legacy, the idea that there was a generation of GSA, and then years later, a new version kind of starts to emerge. And in this show, the center of that is Stargirl, who seems to be the kickstart of anything happening. But in the original typical DC Comics world, that generation was in World War II or thereabouts. It was this much older time period. In this show, it's like 10 years ago. Like Courtney's like a kid when all this is going on.
Which, I mean, doesn't really matter. I mean, the point still works.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I guess it's because all the designs and stuff feel like they fit in that era, that aesthetic of the World War II.
That's true. Honestly, there's a lot of points where, until she pulled out a phone, like maybe 10 or 15 minutes into this, I was like, when is this set? Because you could tell me this is the 90s and I'd believe it.
No, you only thought that because Mbop started playing in the soundtrack.
That didn't help, not gonna lie.
Yeah. I'll be honest, that song started and I was like, okay, this is a really popular song that I know, but it didn't click right away. I was like, because I recognised it from the start. I'm like, what is this? It's getting to the chorus. What is it? And it's like, bop. I was like, damn it! It's Hanson.
You didn't get it in time.
It's Mbop. So, yeah. And then a Naked and Famous song starts playing like 2 minutes later, which is actually a song I really like. So the soundtrack's definitely got a lot going on. There's a lot going on in the soundtrack from the get-go. So we have some more known stars as some of the adults. Luke Wilson's Pat Dugan, who's the stepfather for Courtney, and he was the sidekick to the star man in the show, played by Joel McHale. Again, very minor role in the context of the story. I mean, I'm sure we'll get flashbacks occasionally to him. That's why they cast him, because I don't imagine he's just there for the one scene at the start. Which
that'd be a weird.
That'd be weird.
Casting just for that.
I feel like they've got a few flashback episodes or a few key flashbacks they know they're doing during the season, and that's why they cast someone like that. But so we have that. Courtney is a relative newcomer. I'm sure she's probably been on Disney Channel stuff or something.
She was. I can't remember if it was a Disney or Nickelodeon. She's one of those girls.
Yeah, she's been in kids stuff, but to most of us nerds who are over a certain age, she's a relative newcomer, which makes sense when we're talking about someone who's supposed to be play a 16-year-old, unless they are just happen to be a kid that was in something. We won't know who they are.
I think she's like 19 or 20, so it's close enough. I mean, as TV goes, it's fine.
By TV standards, yeah. So, they moved to a new town. They moved to Nebraska. Because she grew up in California. She's moving to Nebraska. She's not really happy about it. This is like the stepdad's getting a new job. She doesn't really like her stepdad very much. Her mom was played by Amy Smart. She's got a new stepbrother as well as part of this whole deal. It's very much a typical pilot story of moving to the new town, starting the new high school, being the odd one out. But of course, because it's a superhero show, discovering the thing that's going to give her superpower, or in this case, her super gadget, maybe a better term. That will let her become the hero that she's going to be. So that is the basic setup. We'll get into more specifics and spoilers and stuff. But I'll say the gadget's the rod. I mean, I don't think that's a surprise. You see in the poster, the staff, yeah. It does magic-y things. It flies around on its own. It glows. It does fire bolts or star bolts, maybe. Yeah.
Some sort of bolts.
Energy. It fires energy at things. So that's what it is. That comes from Starman, of course. Pat Dugan's got it in a crate and she finds it, and there you go. So you've probably seen this kind of setup in a lot of movies, actually. It reminds me of a lot of kids' movies and stuff from like the 80s, of like finding that thing, the basement that the parents got locked up.
Honestly, everything about this pilot feels very of a bygone era. Like when I said it felt like it was set in the 90s, I think that's early on. I think that's because the whole show feels like this could be a TV pilot from the 90s, just with slightly better effects, and not amazing effects, but better effects than the 90s.
I mean, given the quality of network TV in 2020, in the last few years, that's not actually a bad thing, because network shows were better in the 90s.
That's fair. And I didn't necessarily mean that as insult. I think I enjoyed this well enough for the most part. I got problems, don't be wrong, but I mean, overall...
Technically, of course, this is not originally a network show, but it is aired on a network like the very next day after it premieres on DC Universe. That said, though, it has got the cinematic, 2.35 to 1 aspect ratio. The opening title card does not, because all of the CW shows have a very similar design to their opening title, where it's a quick 5-second thing that plays like a little video. This didn't do that. The title came up as it sort of came down from the sky to sort of transition to the Courtney house, and it felt like it was doing its own thing. It didn't feel like it was compromising, at least so far. Maybe that'll change throughout the season, but at least this pilot, it didn't feel like they changed it to fit the CW mold.
I agree, and as much as it feels like a network show, and I say that as network from the 90s, but still network, it does not feel like any of the CW shows that are on right now with the DC stuff.
No, and I'm going to make some comparisons to the hit television show Buffy the Vampire Slayer. But I do think they're kind of warranted. There's just in the sense moving to a new town, starting a new high school. It kind of, I mean, it doesn't have. There's not a lot of correlations with friends and stuff. I mean, it takes a different tactic with her, basically meeting no one that she could talk to on her first day. But there's some parallels there, and I feel like this kind of wants to tap into that era more than it does, the Flash or Supergirl.
I don't think the comparison to Buffy is exactly right. I mean, those two things you just said there, while yes, they are accurate statements, they cover a wide range of things, not just Buffy.
It's more bubbly. It's more bubbly than Buffy is, but
I will say it's closer to Buffy than it is to the Flash, hands down.
Oh yeah, easy. It's definitely got that vibe. And I will say I am actually pleasantly surprised that I didn't hate it. I think it's there's flaws, there's things that we're going to talk about, and we'll talk about some of the things that maybe don't work quite as well, and some of them I can talk about in spoiler free. But I will say this. I think the overall tone again feels unique compared to the CW shows, despite the fact that it is a high school setting, which you typically associate with the CW. It definitely feels like it's going for something different, and it kind of sold me on the core mechanic of what she's going to be able to do. Because they set up all episode that she wants to join the gymnastics team, because that's what she did back in California. And when she gets the staff, it kind of does it from the context of her, you saying, oh, what can I do with this in terms of gymnastics, because that's what I really want to do. I've got the itch because I've not done it in a while. And it immediately sort of did this little scene where the effects are not bad in this scene. So there's some effects are better than others. The opening scene definitely had a lot of dodgy effects in it because they were doing bigger things.
That first 5 minutes or so is probably the worst 5 minutes of the show, and not just in terms of effects. No,
I agree. I'll talk about some of that other stuff, but the stuff with the staff for the most part looked alright. And it kind of showed her do some gymnastics stuff, sort of using it as a pole vault, using it as various things. But they kept kind of playing with it with the idea that it would stop in air wherever she wanted it to stop, and then she'd use it as a jumping off point or something to land on, or so on and so on, right? And obviously there's a whole witch's broom style of flying as well that it gets into. But what I appreciate about this, it reminded me, and they've not proven this in an action scene yet, so I'm not saying this is definitely going to happen, but the potential here, the way this was working mechanically, it reminded me in the same way that in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Skye's powers over the course of the show, they started to think about how they could use that in the middle of a fight, and it became quite unique the way she would use that to bounce off things or whack people in the middle of a otherwise sort of hand-to-hand combat scene. And I can see a lot of potential, or even compared to Captain America and his shield or something like that, or Thor and his hammer, or even Doctor Strange and his cloak, right? These objects that either some are sentient, some aren't, but
yeah, honestly, I think the Strange's cloak might be the most accurate comparison.
Yeah, it probably is. I was even getting a little, and I hate to reference it, but I was getting a little bit of R2-D2 from the staff at times as well.
I can see that, yeah.
A little bit of attitude, and it's no, you're going to do this thing. You're going to do this thing.
Yeah.
With best of intentions, of course, but, being kind of... No, without actually talking, it just kind of glows and vibrates a little bit, but...
It wiggles around, and it feels like it has personality. And we're comparing it to these objects, and an R2-D2 that has personality.
That's why the Doctor Strange cloak's probably the best comparison, because that definitely had a personality.
It does, yeah.
Whereas these other ones don't necessarily. But mechanically, though, the way she was sort of jumping off on it, onto it, like throwing it into the air and having it sort of stand vertically or horizontally, wherever she wanted to have it to, either vault or do her next gymnastic move, you can see this working into a fight in a really fun way. Even just watching this test run of it was fun to watch.
Yeah, you don't expect them to be hitting that right off the bat in episode 1. Not at all. Like, we praised what they do with Sky's powers in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. That took them at least a season or two to get to the really unique, interesting ways of using that.
And I see potential there already, so I thought that was good, and I thought some of the overall tone was good. I think Luke Wilson was interesting casting for Pat. And I think he works after the time jump. I think in the opening 5-10 minutes with him, he is they had to get this should have been further back in time, and they should have been a younger, different actor, because he felt so silly running about in his mid-40s, whatever he is, doing these lines of dialogue. And it was also it was there as an exposition tool to yell out every hero's name as he was running into them. It was oh no, Starman, oh Dr. Midnight, and I'm like, shut up, this is so unnatural sounding.
The problem is because it didn't matter what their names were in context of that moment.
It really
the only
didn't.
one that probably mattered was Starman, and you could have got that across. If you'd just done it once, you'd probably let him off, but it was 4 times.
And I think Starman would be fine in the context of I mean, I don't think it's a spoiler to say that this dramatic backstory starts with the Justice Society losing to this villain team and Starman dies. That's it's the start of the show. It's the setup of the show. It's why we have to have a new star person,
Yes.
in the future. So if it had been this dramatic thing where he just said as. And I didn't get the comedy here. I was really worried actually during this scene.
Oh God, that was it. Was as Starman's lying there, handing off the staff to Pat.
And I love Joel McHale in other comedy things. I don't know if going for Joel McHale's style of comedy was the right choice for this scene.
No, I think in other points in the episode, you could have inserted that type of comedy nearly flawlessly, right? In this scene where, Starman, it's his last moment. He's handing off the staff to his sidekick, and you've got to find someone to inherit this. You've got to find the right person, but not you. Definitely not you. Absolutely cannot be you under any circumstances. You're just not right for this.
Yeah, and he repeats it 3 times, and it
was cringy.
And I was worried about the episode based on this opening, even though I was geeking out a little bit because there was some visual references. You meant to see certain characters, but there was visual references to prove that they were around and things like that.
Yeah, which means maybe down the line.
Yeah, and notably when we see a photo of the GSA later, there's a mark on the photo to hide some faces so that they can cast them later.
Yeah. Hey,
nice touch.
Do what you gotta do.
Nice touch. But there's hints of these characters. Some of the villains are kind of cool to see, but some of the effects are kind of rough in that opening section. I appreciate them trying. I'm fairly certain we saw a certain Mr. Grundy.
Oh, we definitely did. He shouted his name.
Oh, did he? I didn't even notice the name. Oh, fair enough. It definitely was.
They called him Solomon.
I mean, I assumed it was him, but I didn't hear his name. But,
yeah, they did. But looked pretty rough.
Looked pretty rough, and they were hiding it in shadows as much as they could. But you definitely feel the budget stretching so thin.
It's possible that this is just a pilot budget. Sometimes they get less for pilot because it's let's see what you can do. But
sometimes it's the opposite though. Sometimes they get more for the pilot.
Sometimes they do. Yeah, exactly. You just don't really know until a few episodes in, and we get a more consistent look at what the budget really is.
Yeah, maybe the budget went up when they realised they could sort of sell it again to the CW. Maybe that increased the budget a little bit. I don't know. But but obviously once we transfer forward, and I think this was in the trailer. I can't remember, but the Action Comics logo on the moving truck made me sort of chuckle and eye roll at the same time. I was like, okay, this is a bit much, John. Calm down, John. You got a bit far with this.
This feels like the first episode of Arrow all over again, with the Deathstroke mask and all sorts everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely feel some of the Geoff Johnsiness coming through this though. Unlike a lot of the other shows, I can definitely imagine this being the first 2-3 issues of a Geoff Johns run of a comic, and see how these moments fill into his story. And maybe yes, obviously the transition to doing it on the screen means that there's some stuff doesn't translate as well, or there's some stuff that works in a pulpy way in a comic that just feels cheesy on a TV show, and you have to kind of make it work in the medium it's been told in. But surprisingly, I actually think that once it transferred in time, and it was a bit simple and sort of generic for, new kid moving to new town, mad at her mum for having this new husband and yada yada. But there was enough personality. I thought that Courtney Whitner, Breck Bessinger, she's all right. I thought is the lead role.
Yeah, I thought her and Wilson really play off each other well.
Yeah, that's what I say. When he's been the goofy stepdad who's trying too hard and is failing miserably, I think Luke Wilson, fine casting.
Yeah, I think there's a scene about 2/3 through the episode where the two of them actually talk about what's going on and his past. I think that's the two of them should have actually got good chemistry in that scene for the show going forward. Yeah,
so that's that stuff. There's definitely some massive coincidences in the episode.
Yep.
And I think there's kind of a loose bit of leeway with one of them because there's a tease of something, and I'll talk about spoilers, but it still comes off as a massive coincidence. I'm like, oh, okay. In this town, really?
Yeah.
All right, sure. Whatever. Like I say, there's a brief little thing that kind of maybe ties it in, but it still feels
but the
a bit
actual
much.
I think I know exactly what you're talking about here, because I agree the overall bigger picture point of it is fine, and there is something that hints that okay, there is something here, but the actual minutiae of how it happens is very contrived.
Very contrived, and even if you buy some things in the town, the connection to someone else is very coincidental anyway. So
yes.
it's you got that problem. That said, despite that problem, I will say I did not feel like this had the pilot rush syndrome. This felt perfectly finely paced to me, and admittedly, it does feel like part one of a 2-part pilot, but I'm okay with that. I would rather do that than have a rushed story.
I agree. This was maybe, I don't know, 6 or 7 minutes longer than an average, CW pilot. Which will be interesting, because I'm assuming they're going to cut that down for CW airing and, not give them an extra, little bit of leeway. So I wonder how that feels there, because it's only an extra few minutes, but that does make the difference. Sometimes go into the full... sometimes they'll go, here, have an hour 10, and it feels self-indulgent. They've gone too long and it's too far in the other direction. So I think, just that extra few minutes has helped with the pacing. And I'd be concerned about how it feels on CW.
Well, that's probably would be an over 10 on CW with ads if they do the whole thing.
I mean, in just pure runtime, not
sure.
even with ads.
But that's, I think with ads, this actually would be about an over 10. I mean, and maybe because it's the pilot, and maybe because it's the summer schedule, more or less now, maybe they will just let them have the whole slot.
They might. But... I think I vaguely remember reading at the time when they announced that we're going to be on the CW, it would be a cut down version. Like there'll be like, extended versions on the DC universe.
No, they definitely did. That's a fact. But I'm wondering if the pilot gets away with a bit extra because it's the pilot, and
that's possible.
Maybe it feels more important to leave everything in. But I actually thought the pacing was not bad, and I felt like it wasn't rushing through its story, because part of me was worried that we were going to somehow end up with Courtney in the costume by the end of the first episode somehow, and I'm so glad that we're not even, like, maybe by the end of the second episode it'll feel okay, but like right now there was no way
it doesn't even feel close right now. It feels like she's not even considering any sort of heroics. It's just, oh hey, here's a thing I found.
Yeah. So I appreciate the pacing, and honestly, her not rushing to conclusions and not rushing to what she's going to do with it. And like I say, it doesn't have to be that long. Like she can make a choice by the end of the second episode and have that costume on. We can have sort of a hint that someone's going to make a costume, and then have her walk out in it for the final scene of the second episode, and it'd probably be fine, based on what the story is they're going to tell over the course of the second episode. But in this first episode, I really appreciate that it doesn't rush through anything like that. It feels like it takes time to establish who she is, makes her likable despite the fact she's been a bit of a grumpy teenager about Pat being the new stepdad. Like, she's been a bit mean to him essentially overall, but there's enough kind of little touches in there. Something as simple as sticking up for a random kid who's getting bullied in the cafeteria, for example. Like, just little things like that. They just give her enough to make you like her. And then there's more as it goes on, and some other little things they sort of tease and seed for the other characters. Cause there's like one scene that the parents get one scene each of like arriving at their new jobs, and they're just on their own, and we get like a sense of where they're both going to be working, and I'm sure that's something they'll expand upon going forward. And maybe that's the sort of thing that you could argue should get pushed to another episode, but at the same time, it's their first day arriving at their workplace, so it'd feel weird having that later in the timeline. Yeah. So yeah, it makes sense. But it's the sort of thing maybe they could get away with trimming that down for the CW. I don't know.
That's possible, yeah. I'd say overall I'm pleasantly surprised by this. I mean, as far as DC Universe content goes, live action, this is the second best that I've seen so far, based off of the first episode.
But yeah, based off the first episode, but it's definitely better than what Swamp Thing arguably was from the get-go. If not became. Certainly, I mean, I would say Swamp Thing had the impressive visual of Swamp Thing to kind of tide us over for a couple of episodes until it really sank in that there was never going to be an improvement in the writing, and it was like, okay. Right. So this doesn't have quite the spectacle of that, although it does end in a fun moment, a fun reveal at the end.
It does, yeah.
Obviously Titans has some like fun bad qualities to it as it goes, but
Titans isn't necessarily the worst show. I don't like it, but I think it's a terrible adaptation.
Sure, yes.
I don't think that matters here to some degree, but I don't think it's a great show either. Especially as that was their first showing, so it kind of had more pressure on it. This isn't close to Doom Patrol though, let's be honest.
I think what I do appreciate about these DC Universe offerings, as much as I do think the service is kind of redundant now and everything should just be like under a subsection of HBO Max going forward, is that they do all feel very different. None of these live action shows have felt like they remotely like feel like they're from the same, because CW stuff, they all feel like they've got the CW like sheen to them. They'll have the CW backbone.
Legends
skeleton.
Is the only one that kind of sticks out as feeling different from all the others.
And that wasn't it from the start, though. That was something that developed over time.
Over the course of season 2 onwards, kind of developed.
Whereas this doesn't feel anything like Titans or Swamp Thing or Doom Patrol. And, Doom Patrol, of course, is the best one out of the bunch. We love Doom Patrol. And this is the sort of one there where, like, much like a network show from the 90s, I don't expect it necessarily, but if you told me that by the time this like finishes, say, season 2, assuming it gets to season 2, that it sort of becomes something wonderful, because once it starts laying the groundwork for its characters, and if Geoff Johns, does what he did in the comics, or not Stargirl, but obviously didn't write a Stargirl ongoing, but just in the sense that he tends to build things over time, and he plays the long game, and he does these things. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if this became something great over time. I'm not saying I'm predicting it or even would want to put money on it, because
no, but it has more potential than almost any other network pilot we've tried in the last couple of years.
Yeah, and I guess what I'm trying to say here is that there was a time when network TV was like this, where it started off just okay, and you gave it a bit of leeway, you gave it a chance, and sometimes that really worked out for you. It worked out with something like Buffy, which wasn't as great until some sort of mid-season 2-ish time, where it really started to click, and it really... And I still love those old episodes, but it became Buffy the Vampire Slayer around the middle of season 2. Fringe, okay season 1, kind of generic, but once you hit about 2/3 through season 2, holy shit, this is doing wonderful stuff, and the long game that it's playing is great.
And to go into a less extreme version, Chuck.
Chuck's another one. No, I agree. Season 1 was just okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine. It's perfectly enjoyable. It's not bad enough that you want to stop watching it.
Do you know what I like about Chuck as a comparison, actually, is that Chuck, unlike those other shows, it doesn't get super serious, because it's still Chuck, right? It's still a lighthearted show. But by the time I got to the end of season 2, and definitely into the seasons 3, 4, and 5, is it kind of surprised me how much I really cared about those characters and how invested I was in them, despite the fact that it was a relatively lighthearted, fun show.
Yeah.
And I think this is maybe a good comparison for this, because I don't expect this to be this super dark thing. It's going to, it's still this bubbly teenage, blonde girl lead character.
It might try and have its moments, as a lot of stuff these days does. But I can see, maybe even by the end of the first season, really liking these characters. Yeah.
So certainly the lead bunch, if nothing else. I'd be interested to see if they flesh out some of the other students that might be our friends at some point.
Well, I believe from press releases and trailers and stuff that there is going to be, a new version of the JSA, which is not, a shock. And
sure.
A lot of them seem to be around her age.
Okay. So her Scooby Gang is the JSA. That's pretty
kind
fun.
of. Yeah. Like I know there's going to be like a new Wildcat, for example.
And Pat's kind of like a really like shitty, like insecure version of Giles.
In many ways, yes.
Okay. All right, so we'll give the spoiler warning so we could talk about some of the plot details and the stuff that it reveals and whatnot. But yeah, so thank you very much. If you want to support everything we do, go to patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. You can support us financially there, or you can like on YouTube and subscribe and all that stuff. Liking is really important. It lets people know that you think the content's worth watching, and it'll recommend us out. The algorithm will pick us up and so on. And if you've made it, 25 minutes into this, however long this is going to end up being, but you probably did enjoy some of it, so please do. Okay, so full spoilers then. So yeah, the big contrivance, obviously. So when she's at school, there's like these quote unquote the mean girls like try to sort of indoctrinate her into the cheerleading because there's no gymnastics, and she kind of awkwardly turns it down, but then feels awkward about it because then they think that means you don't want to be friends then. And then when she goes to lunch, she sits with the losers, and there's a certain nerdy girl who's like, "Oh, we're not friends. We're just this is a table for all the people who are on their own because we're all losers." And the other girl who's sitting there, the jocks come up and start making fun of her and calling her a slut and things like that. And Courtney is just like, "What the hell, dudes? Leave her alone!" Like she's just immediately so likable, of course. And she kind of pushes him away when he tries to steal her phone to pick on her, and gets thrown in detention for it. And I kind of like that even before we get to any superpowers, like she's willing to stick up for herself and fight, and she does a pretty good job. Like he falls on his ass, like he's
I think it's probably no. He goes into like the
he hits
teacher or someone.
I think it's one of the dinner ladies. The food goes flying,
but it wasn't like unbelievable. It was more just no. This guy was caught off guard with a reasonably forced shove.
Yeah, but she's not holding back is the point. She's not like scared to go for it, which kind of sets up her character. So these are the kind of things you need in a pilot. You need moments like this to kind of set up how strong-willed she is before she's quote unquote becomes special, right? And the big contrive is that this guy, who she then later sees picking on other nerds at the drive-in movie theater. They're watching the Goonies, by the way, which maybe tells you something about the tone that this show maybe wants to have going forward.
Yeah, I think when we mentioned 80s movies earlier, with it's not an unwarranted comparison.
The Goonies found a map in their attic. Like it's not that dissimilar to Courtney finding the staff.
It's really not.
But she's got the staff at this point, and she tries to mess with her tires on their car to sort of pay back. She even puts like a handkerchief around her face to hide her identity as she's doing it. And the staff ends up protecting her when the guys try to hit her, and she ends up punching them a bunch, and then the staff zaps the car and makes it blow up. No one gets hurt, but the car does blow up, so it's pretty severe in the context of teenagers and whatnot. So the big contrivance, though, is that this kid, this main bully, who she's been kind of like starting to have this antagonistic relationship with, his father is Brainwave, the leader villain from the flashbacks, who is in this same town. Now, the one little thing that saves it slightly is that there is a line earlier on when they're describing how Pat and the mum met. What was the mum's name? Barbara. When Pat and Barbara met, she was visiting home because this is her hometown, the mum's hometown. And he was here, and when Courtney questions, why were you even here? He says, I was looking for something. So the implication is that he was maybe looking into where these villains have went, and he was trying to wean them out, and that's why they've moved here. Yeah,
and when we see her find the staff, there's a bunch of other documents and papers
like
there.
The secret
there is
files.
A map with with this town circled, so it's not a surprise that there's something here. It's more the contrived element is, of course, the son is the bully.
Yeah, that's the problem with it. Is okay, so that explains why they came to the town and why the main villain's in the town. So I won't really care about that. But the fact that the bully turns out to be the son of this villain is just like, okay, all right. Having your cake and eating it too a little bit there. I also had a problem with the reveal as well. So let's just say we have no problem with what the reveal is. I thought it was really strange that the scene where it cuts to like the mansion where the evil Brainwave lives, and his son's telling him what happened to the car, and he's very interested. There was a staff, because he's recognizing what this sounds like, and he's asking questions. It starts off with like a wide shot, and it's very clear as soon as the wide shot starts that it's him. There's this is the villain, this is Brainwave. But the camera kind of almost goes about as if it's hiding his face until there's a shot where it shows his face and the music goes as if it's a big reveal the moment the camera hits his face. And I'm like, it was obvious who he was at the start of the scene. And all I could feel was, if you wanted to do that sort of moment, then actually hide his face. But the side view, the wide shot, they were still clearly him the whole time.
Yeah, I don't think it helped having the really sinister exterior shot of the mansion as well.
Yeah, probably not.
Like that set up expectations. In terms of the tone of the shot, the composition, the music that was going on out there, all of it was, okay, we're at an unfriendly place. So of course this is the villain.
I guess what I'm saying is that they tried to do a sort of typical cheesy reveal of the villain, which is fine in the context of the tone of the show, but they kind of messed up even that in this scene.
Yeah.
It didn't actually flow beat for beat the way it was supposed to. So that would be a critique there. We do see Stripe at the end, because ultimately the big ending to the episode is that because he's heard this, Brainwave contacts Icicle, who looks like he's in London, from the quick scene we get of him, and he goes after Courtney. He because she's flying through the air, she's practicing with the staff.
I enjoyed that training sequence, on the rooftop of her just trying and trying to get the hang of it.
I think both the first scene where she's just out sort of in the sort of parky area and she's like doing the initial gymnastic stuff, and then the scene where she's practicing in the roof, I think they're both really fun, and that's the sort of stuff that makes me feel confident. I might get into this. Like, I might actually be really into this.
It's got a lot of potential. Yeah.
How much do you think the fact that we have not forced ourselves through a CW show for the last 4 or 5 months has helped our acceptance of this premiere?
I think it might well have helped. I also think, how long has it been since we've tried a network pilot that we've really kind of actually liked?
Yes. Which again, technically this is not, but it feels like one.
No, and that's why I'm keep comparing it. Is it feels like a network pilot, and no other streaming or cable service is making pilots like this. And I feel like every so often we're like, man, we miss those times of TV, and Shield's like our last network show standing, I think, really now. Yeah,
it is. The rating's on the wall. It's done after this next season.
We've only got a few more weeks of that, and that's it. So it really does feel like, maybe we want a network show that we can kind of latch on to. We want something like this, and this comes along with a half decent showing, and we're like, yes, please let this be the one.
I think at the very least, because it is different enough in the CW shows that I'd probably still be at least optimistic after this episode. But I think not forcing myself through Flash and Batwoman and Supergirl and whatever else, I do think it's at least given me some time off from superhero TV in general, that I'm just not sick of the thought of a superhero show.
Yeah, that might be right. Because I remember when this was announced that, okay, it's going to go on CW as well, and we were both worried because it's like, oh my god, what does that tell us about the tone of it, that they think it's a perfect fit. I'm less worried now that they also got Swamp Thing to go on CW.
Swamp Thing's airing later this year.
That was like a couple of days ago that they said that, and I was like, okay, well, that's tonally very different to what I'm expecting from Stargirl. So
the funny thing
maybe it wasn't.
Is I would say that this does actually fit on the CW overall, but it does feel different from what the CW are making right now.
It feels like it would have fit on the CW 10 years ago. Yeah,
or WB, more if we're going to the 90s model, before it changed to the CW.
Yeah. It feels more in line with that than what's on CW right now.
Yeah, even the small town they moved to, it feels like, Dawson's Creek or something like that, where it's that kind of small town. Actually, there was a line early on because we haven't really talked about the younger brother, the stepbrother character, who's kind of this quirky little gamer kid who's got a bit of a smart mouth, but not.
I kind of enjoyed.
Not to an annoying degree. No, he was more. Yeah, he was more likable than maybe that makes him sound.
He was like the smart ass kid that is sometimes enjoyable in an indie movie. Yeah,
because he does this thing early on where he's complaining about moving because he's asking like, wait, is there no In-N-Out in Nebraska? Because they're moving from California, right? And In-N-Out's like one of the big burger chains, but it's only in that kind of like corner of the country. And so there's no In-N-Out. There's no Fatburger. What? And he's like, no indoor plumbing. He's like, look, we're going to Nebraska, not
Siberia.
Not Siberia. Yeah. But there's a line here. It's like, no, you'll like it, fresh air, fun outdoor activities. The schools don't have metal detectors, and I thought, surely you still want that though. I mean, I get the reason.
I think the point is they don't need them. Is the implication?
Yeah. Well, I guess that's the positive idea. I understand that, but what I'm saying is that, just in case, maybe that would still be a good idea in 2020. Yeah,
I get that. I think the implication is supposed to be that it's a safe area. This doesn't happen there. We don't need metal detectors in the schools.
I'm pretty sure a lot of these small towns are just as susceptible.
Yeah, I'm not saying they're not. I'm not saying this is factually correct. I'm saying that's clearly the implication of the sentence.
Yes. No, I get the implication. I'm saying I think I disagree with his logic, is what I'm saying.
That's fair. But he might know better than me.
I mean, Luke Wilson doesn't know anything better than you.
That's the nicest thing you've ever said to me.
I rank Connor above Luke Wilson, alright? I said it. Yeah. But he's got a couple of funny lines later on as well, where he's saying, there's like a computer development class, which my school certainly never had, so good luck with that, kid.
Yeah, me either.
Yeah, but he's like, no, it's like a club and we get to make our own video games, and he's like, that sounds great, you're taking initiative, you found a hobby that you can do on day one, that's really good. It's like, yeah, and because there's like nothing to do here, everyone plays way more video games, it's great. And Pat just looks at him like, oh no, I've made a mistake.
You know, in the current climate of the world, I can relate to that sentiment. Well, there's nothing else to do, so I'm playing way more games.
Yes. But no, he's likable enough. The actual finding of the staff is, it's fine. She gets angry and she goes out in the basement.
Hokey, but it's like, it works.
It works well enough. She finds the staff. She farts around with it. Blows up the car. But there's other fun moments where when the staff comes up to get her, and it sort of like makes her fall out of bed, and the mum comes in to talk to her.
Yeah, this was probably the single most unbelievable moment of the episode for me.
Because she was lying in bed in her completely the same clothes she was wearing all day.
She's wearing fully clothed, lying on top of the bed, and her mum comes in. She goes, "Are you alright?" She goes, "Yeah, I can't sleep." I'm like, "Well, yeah, no shit."
Do you know what's funny about this to me is that this was a video game thing, because having played Final Fantasy VII Remake recently, every time you go to sleep in that game in a bed, you just lie down at your full clothes, and that's because it's a video game and they can't think of a way to make a character take their clothes off, so they just don't bother. They just have them lie down.
Yeah.
That was this. She just lies down in her jeans, in her hoodie, like just lies down.
And her mum doesn't question it at all. No. She's just like, all right then, night.
Yeah, if she'd make a snarky comment saying, well, maybe if you actually got dressed for bed, perhaps maybe you'd fall asleep then.
Do you know what? If she'd addressed it, this wouldn't be a complaint at all. But it's the fact that she's blatantly not gone to bed at all that it's just like, what?
Well, no.
It feels like Paul Wright.
No, you're incorrect. She did, because the scene started off with her being asleep. The staff woke her up. It wasn't a lie.
Okay, that's true. But
she was actually in bed sleeping like that before the staff woke her up.
You're right. That's worse.
Well, no,
why?
No, I get it. Sometimes I'll just lie down thinking I'm just resting for a minute and I'll fall asleep and close, and it's normal and it's fine. But it sticks out here for two reasons. One, because it's the only time you see her sleep, and two, because when the mum comes in, she says, I can't get to sleep. The mum doesn't crack some sort of snarky mum line. Well, maybe if you actually took off your jeans or something, maybe you'd fall asleep.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was a weird.
It was weird.
But yes, so the actual brainwave like throws tires at her, and he's kind of surprised when she's able to kind of like make the staff like resist his telekinesis. Briefly. Yeah. She's able to fight out of it, and that's like, oh shit. And she thinks the Starman is her dad, because that would explain why it works for her.
Yes, this would be new.
This would be new. I suspect the swerve's going to be that her actual father's a villain.
Could be, yeah.
And the reason why I'm saying that is because she's got that little locket with the picture, and it does look kind of like Joel McHale, but it's kind of unclear. And I was
faded,
thinking, yeah, it's like, because when it cut to Icicle later, I thought that kind of looks like Icicle as well. Icicle's got the same sort of jawline, and I could see this being Icicle. But I'm saying she's Icicle Junior, technically, but I just like I think there's enough wiggle room here that she assumes this, but then maybe it turns out it's more like Thor's hammer, where it's just no, you're worthy. The staff chose you because you're worthy. You've got the fight in you.
Yeah, I think that's the most likely outcome. I think it's because I can see the arc here, her pinning her hopes on her father having actually been some hero. That there's a reason why he abandoned us
on that night, the same night that the JSA lost and disappeared, and
right. It's and I can see the arc being her having to accept that no, her father was just some scumbag.
Just some scumbag who abandoned her and her mum. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be a villain even, but just not the hero that she has thought all her life.
Yeah, and the mum's okay. I mean, we not really talked about Barbara, Amy Smart's character. She is perfectly likeable in the role she has. It's kind of a thankless role so far, and that she doesn't really get anything to do that we can sort of like praise or root for or whatever. But she's
there's a setup that she's got a job in this fancy place, and there's senators and whatnot.
At least one of whom is definitely a villain.
Oh, absolutely. So I feel like her her involvement will increase as the show goes on. There'll be more stuff for her in that department, but here and now, very little. And the assumption is she just has a good relationship with her daughter, so we don't need to see that much of it. We see just enough to go, yeah, it's fine. And then, because then all the interesting stuff is her and Pat.
Yeah, likewise, we also see this dude from the gym comes by to the... Because Pat's a mechanic.
Crusher.
Yeah, Crusher.
Yeah.
Yes. Which he insists on people calling him because he wants a cool nickname. But he insists that Pat come round and get muscles. What I thought was odd about this is that this Crusher fellow did not look that built either, to be honest. He looked kind of normal size to me, but...
Maybe he wears baggy clothes.
Yeah, if he's wearing baggy clothes, because they didn't look that big anyway. Like it's not like if he was sort of bulky and had baggy clothes on, he'd look big at least. Maybe not muscly, but he'd look big. He didn't.
Possibly, that's true.
So I don't know.
I don't know. He was very eager for Pat to come down to his gym.
Yes, some aggressive sales tactics. So yeah, Courtney and Stripey, which she points out is a dumb name. Stripesy, sorry. Pat, they make a deal for her to keep all this a secret. She's not happy that you lied to her mum about this, but I mean, as far as secrets go, this is much better than a lot of other things that she may have uncovered about her new stepdad. So she agrees that, oh, you make my mum happy, so I'm going to let this go. Which is kind of her arc for the episode, is that she's very anti-Pat a lot of the episode. And this is the first time where she's like, you know what, you make her happy. Like, I'm not even necessarily say I like you, but I'm not going to ruin that because clearly you're good enough to be around.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. So that was kind of her arc. But we end in the cliffhanger, of course, where she gets thrown out the building by Brainwave during the fight, and when she lands there, we see the big Stripe robot comes out, and she thinks it's a villain or something, but then we see inside that it's actually Luke Wilson piloting it. So
fun cliffhanger.
It's a fine cliffhanger. Definitely, it feels like a sort of Welcome to the Hellmouth-esque cliffhanger. Get into the second half of the essential pilot. Oh,
yeah, I buy that.
So, it's basically, it's fine. I'd rather they spend 2 episodes doing it and give it the time it needs to really build up to her making some sort of choice to help people or do something or whatever. And maybe the attack of the villain. Because I'm sure there's going to have to be some way they nullify Brainwave or some reason why Brainwave retreats for some time. Because he knows who she is. He's coming straight after her. There has to be something that calms things down again for a while. Because it's a TV show.
It does, yeah.
So I'm curious to see what that is. And I suspect we're going to get these other villains from the team showing up, maybe possibly one by one, or even just assembling over the course of the season.
Yeah, there was something like, because this is their take on the Injustice League, clearly. One of them I thought was supposed to be Abracadabra.
Nah, it's the Wizard.
It's the Wizard. I saw it when I got to the file. I went, oh, okay, it's the Wizard.
You're a
That's
wizard.
Interesting.
Wizard.
Yes, very good.
Well, I'm Scottish. I'm allowed to quote Hagrid, all right?
Yes, I know.
It's allowed.
It's like no one else can.
No, that's allowed. And you can replace it with it, and it sounds really good. You're a lizard, Harry. You're a woman, Harry. I'm a what?
Anything.
You're a toaster, Harry.
I'm just getting flashbacks to that video of it now. That I haven't seen in probably a decade, but it's just all come flooding back.
You're a stop sign, Harry. I'm a what? Goldie. So this, I don't even like Harry Potter. I want to be that clear. I am not a Harry Potter person at all.
He's really not. I am, but he's not.
I just like that meme. That meme of replacing that line and just having like young Harry Potter being like, I'm a what? Like, this really makes me laugh. Anyway, that's Stargirl episode 1. It's not bad. It's not like a home run, but there's enough potential here, and it's scratching an itch that I have not had scratched in quite some time, and hopefully it develops enough to feel reliable and feel like something that's going to be dependable as a source of entertainment and long-form storytelling. It could all go up shit's creek and start to fall apart when things don't click together. Once it starts to continue things from episode 2 to 3. What's a standalone episode story in this show going to be like? They may suck.
There's a possibility that once they get their team together, that it stops feeling like a Scooby Gang, potentially, and more like a CW team.
A Team Flash or Team Arrow, yeah. And that would definitely hurt. I'm hoping because she's in high school and because presumably and the reason why she probably forms this team is because she realizes there's a team coming for her. There's this team of villains coming. So it's like, we have to, forgive the word, but assemble. So damn Marvel have got that word on lockdown. They nabbed it, and now it just feels wrong to say it when you're talking about DC.
It does.
Anytime I'm reading a DC comic and someone says they have to assemble, I'm like, I mean, I know that it's a good word for what at the moment, but
there's very few words that adequately replace it.
Yes, we should.
Gather doesn't really have the impact.
We should unite.
Unite's not bad. It's probably the next best, but it's not as good.
We should correlate our attacks. But that was good.
This is not.
But yeah, I want to watch episode 2.
Yeah, me too.
All right, we'll see you next week.
Surprising.
I know. We'll see you next week for episode 2 of Stargirl. So we'll see how it goes. So that's good stuff. And we got Doom Patrol coming back after this. So
I think while this is still going on,
are they overlapping?
Well, Doom Patrol is in June, so.
Oh yeah, I guess it is. So this is. I think. Oh, it's 13 episodes. This is. Oh.
It is, so they'll still overlap. But I suspect part of it is this got delayed at least a week or two. I think because the CW asked them to, because obviously they were running out of content and were like, can we just get it there so we can have something?
Yeah. All right then. Well, I mean, it does mean. It's what's funny is that they overlap. Doom Patrol, of course, is not airing on CW, but it will also be on HBO Max. So both of them are going to be on different things.
I think that's the other side of it. It's two elements. The CW asked this to be pushed back, and HBO Max went, "We're having Doom Patrol on this day. We don't give a shit what Stargirl's doing."
It kind of helps DC Universe, kind of in a weird way, because let's say someone is watching Stargirl on it. And then Doom Patrol starts, and they've got HBO Max. Stargirl's maybe a reason to keep it around for at least a few more weeks. And vice versa, someone might have... I mean, obviously everyone has access to the CW, but, someone might not care about Swamp Thing and HBO Max, but, it being on DC Universe means, I'll keep my DC Universe still ongoing for that.
That's true. So, and they also have Harley Quinn Season 2, the animated show, going on right now. So they're actually going to have, that might still be just about going when Doom Patrol starts. So they might have 3 things kind of coming out at once.
Okay, so we'll try episode 2 next week. I'm somewhat optimistic. Very different.
We didn't actually predict that.
No, we didn't. We kind of expected it to suck, and it's not perfect. It's not I wouldn't. If you're someone who comes to us to hear Mr. Robot, Westworld, and Twin Peaks reviews, I'm not going to recommend this to you. This is not for that audience, unless you like us and dip your toes in a lot of different things.
This is for any of our patrons who have signed up for Pete's Buffy commentaries. This is probably for you.
Maybe, I don't know. I mean, it has to prove itself before I'm recommending it based on the idea of, you like Buffy, you should watch this.
I mean, tonally, compared to Westworld and Mr. Robot and Better Call Saul.
Yeah, Buffy's not about tone. Buffy's about quality. So, I made that clear. I mean, do I have to compare it to Twilight to show you how much quality matters when it's a similar concept?
Please don't.
Alright, that is with the Stargirl pilot. You can let us know what you think in the comments below. Please do like and subscribe. You can support us doing that also financially over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV, what you can do for as little as $1 per month, and you get some bonuses for that. At $5 tier you get early access to some stuff, and you get to vote on some stuff. At a $10 tier you get to suggest pilots every month, and you get to do other things. So go and have a look and see if you're interested in all that stuff, and just keep all the content coming. But otherwise, you get us on the Twitters at mailed_fuzz for channel updates, and that is pretty much it. We're also trying Snowpiercer. In fact, we're recording that right after this, so that'll be up pretty much the same day as this, unless I put one up late tonight, which I might. But either way, it's either already up or very, very soon. So look forward to the Snowpiercer pilot discussion. But that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching TV, guys. Have you got any vanilla?